Welcome, welcome, welcome everybody. Outsiders Fantasy Podcast crew with the K because we're cool like that. Today we are talking about Thursday night football. Carolina Panthers against as Drew was saying earlier before we came on the air, probably the most dangerous one-win team in the NFL, the Falcons. A couple more pieces here and there. If their secondary hadn't gotten just ravaged by injuries, they would be a very scary team. So, anyway, however, I don't see the Falcons winning, but still, it's going to be a good game fantasy-wise at least, and that's really all we care about, unless you're a Falcons fan. Just an update on Christian McCaffrey. I know you've seen reports that he's been officially taken off injured reserve. That is not going to affect in this game. He is not playing this game. It's still Mike Davis. So if you have Mike Davis, if you haven't already tried to trade him, which I would have already, you sell him high, essentially, give the person hopefully enough time spaced out before CMC comes back that they forget that he's even on the team. But if you happen to have just held on to him because you need a running back, he's still good to go tonight. Not that it's going to be an easy game for him. Surprisingly, the Falcons are pretty good against the run, and we'll go over that in a little while. But he's definitely worthy of dialing up. So just to talk a little bit about the Panthers defense. So last week they did allow 415 yards total to Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara on a Saints team that was without Emmanuel Sanders and Michael Thomas. One important thing I wanted to point out for the Panthers D, though, is in the second half they held the Saints to 6 points. So that is to say that the Panthers are capable of shutting down explosive offenses after they've made adjustments. That's important because if you do happen to have a Panthers defense or something like that, and you think it's going to be relevant in this game, the Falcons could explode on them, but just know that they do have the ability to clamp down on defenses. Personally, I wouldn't recommend either one of these defenses, but just because it's going to be a high-scoring game on one side and not in a high yardage game on the other side, in my opinion. But so far, I believe – Hey, what's up, Tyler? So the keys to this game before we get down to the nitty gritty, like the real concrete stats of these people, the keys to victory that I think you'll see in this game are the Carolina Panthers and Teddy Bridgewater, DJ Moore, and those receivers, even Mike Davis out of the backfield. I see them attacking the Saints' passing defense all night. As we know, the Saints' secondary has, like I said earlier, been ravaged by injuries, and they just can't get right against passing teams. So I definitely do see Teddy Bridgewater. If you have him on your team, this is a good night to play him. Obviously, Mike Davis for a third time. I've mentioned him. DJ Moore, definitely put him somewhere in your lineup. If you have a really good receiving core, put him in your flex. That way you got your other two, or vice versa. Keep your flex open for later on in the week, whatever. Just make sure he's in your lineup. Heck, even if you're super desperate for a tight end, if you're in like a double tight end league and it's a deeper 12-team league and you're desperate for a tight end, honestly, usually I wouldn't recommend Ian Thomas, but tonight, who knows? I definitely wouldn't feel bad about trying to take a flyer on him, just because of how terrible the Falcons are against the pass. Where I see Mike Davis having maybe a little bit of trouble, depending on how well the passing goes and how much they spread the Falcons out on defense is the rushing game. The Falcons, believe it or not, do rank 6th overall in the NFL against the rush. They are only allowing 92 yards per game for the entire year. The last 3 games, they have only allowed 73 yards per game, and last week they only allowed 64 yards rushing. Not to say that Mike Davis can't have a really good game. I'm just saying that this is not necessarily going to be his easiest one.
Yeah, I think he's going to be more effective out of the backfield. Last in week 5 against the Falcons, he had 9 receptions for 60 yards. He did have 89 yards on the ground that game, but it'll be
they've tightened it up.
Yeah, they've really tightened that run defense. I think he'll be more effective out of the backfield, which is good if you're in a PPR league and you have him. So.
Yeah. And then also it depends on how well their defense does against the Falcons, obviously. If they can somehow shut down the Falcons like they've shown to have shut down the Saints in the second half last week, they may run a lot more with Mike Davis, so they could add for more rushing yards. But I don't see the majority of his points, or at least maybe half of his points coming from – I see them coming from the passing game. So just to compare as far as offensively, the team's rushing performances, like I said, Atlanta is 6th in the NFL overall, and we got those numbers. Carolina, so this is where I would dial up Todd Gurley or even Hill if you are in a deeper league and you need and you have Todd Gurley handcuffed or you're handcuffed but like on a separate team. Obviously you wouldn't start both of them if you had them on the same team, but something like that. Carolina is actually ranked 18th overall in the NFL against the rush, and for 2020 they've allowed 124 yards per game. The last 3 games they've allowed an average of 122 yards, and most telling, last game they allowed 138 yards rushing. So I definitely see a lot of Todd Gurley in the future in this game.
Yeah, week 5 actually against the same Panthers defense. Not to toot my own horn, but I called him in a sleeper in week 5. He ended up getting 121 yards and a touchdown, averaged 8.6 yards per carry against the Panthers week 5 last game.
Yeah, for sure. And this might be one of those repeat performances. So, and on to the passing yards per game. So, like we said, the opponent passing yards per game. We all know Atlanta's trash, but just to be official with it, they do rank 31st in the NFL. For 2020, they've allowed 333 yards a game. The last 3 games, 322, almost 323. And then last game, they've 322 as well. Where that compares to Carolina, they're actually the 10th ranked overall as far as yards allowed against the pass with 227 for 2020, 227 for the past 3 games as well, and then 227 the last game as well. So they've been pretty consistent all year around. But I think that's going to be tested really heavy tonight because as far as I know, most of at least the important receivers for the Falcons are definitely healthy tonight, ready to go. So as far as touchdowns are concerned on the defense, again, Atlanta, they've allowed almost 3 touchdowns a game for the entire year. For the last 3 games, they've allowed 2 touchdowns passing through the air, and the last game they allowed 1. Carolina, I lost them. So they've allowed 1 in 2020 average per game, won the past 3 games average per game, and then the last game they had 2 because of their performance with New Orleans. So obviously you see a trend here. I don't want to go all down the whole thing with all that, but obviously we see that the better defense of the 2 tonight is going to be Carolina. But Carolina does have does have that chance to put up a lot of points through the air on, just because the Falcons, they kind of make that a habit for everybody. And now to talk about their offense, that'll actually reflect that. So overall, so to switch to the offense, to show that even though Carolina, all these statistical categories for team defense that I've shown, they've been towards the top, at least top 10, top 15, whatever. The Falcons do have a very formidable offense, even though they are a one-win team. So as far as just total team yards per game, Atlanta ranks 6th in the NFL with 401 yards per game for 2020. The past 3 games, they rose that up to 408 yards per game, and last game they had 388. So they dipped below their average, but that's still better. That average is still better than about 30 NFL or about 20 NFL teams.
Yeah, and I think even though they dipped below their average, I mean, they had every chance to win that game. I think both of these teams last week kind of feel like they let one get away with both losing to the Saints and the Falcons losing to the Lions on a crazy ending.
Yeah, for sure. And Carolina, just for reference, where Atlanta does rank 6, Carolina's at 16th. So their offense is not that it's going to matter this week. This is definitely going to be a statistical improvement game for Carolina, just because of Atlanta's secondary, as well as to show how explosive Atlanta can be. They're averaging about 6 yards per play. Which the leader is Seattle with 6.6. So they're only 0.6 away from being from the very top of the average yards per play. So it shows, number one, they have a very explosive offense as far as getting a lot of yards in the game. Number two, they're an explosive offense just per play in general. Third down conversions, they're ranked 5th in the NFL in getting off or getting a first down for third down conversions. So that should go ahead.
To play off that, Carolina's defense is one of the worst in getting off the field on third down. Last week, the Saints converted 12 of 14 third downs, and there was 85.7% conversion rate, which is one of the worst out of any game this year for any team. But they have they're ranked one of the worst teams on third down in the NFL. So.
Yeah, Drew cut out a little bit in the beginning, but I'm sure as you caught at the end of it, what he was saying is Carolina is one of the worst third down conversion defenses in the NFL. They do not get off the field on third down. Atlanta, I believe I said, was 5th in the NFL with converting on third down. So, again, another formidable offensive stat against the Carolina defense. Another reason not to start them. As far as time of possession, the total average time of possession on offense, Atlanta is ranked 9th with 30 overall in 2020 with about 30 and a half, actually almost 31 minutes time of possession game. The only Carolina is above them by only 1 minute. I don't think that helps them this week, just because Carolina's defense is so susceptible to getting passed on really easily. So, and then points per game, Atlanta is 13th. They are ranking 26 points per game in the NFL. And red zone percentage, team red zone scoring percentage. Sorry, we keep cutting out. Anyway, Atlanta. That's the only place that they kind of do struggle at as far as the red zone scoring percentage. Now it has gotten better overall in 2020. They're only at 58% scoring in the red zone, but last game they improved that drastically to 75%. So whatever they did last game, they must be trying something new to make it work. Regardless, the whole point of this, I know, is a little long-winded. Just because Atlanta's a one-win team, don't get sucked into thinking that's just because they just suck all around, and don't pick up Carolina's defense last minute if you stream defenses just because you think they're going to run roughshod over Atlanta. Atlanta will prove you wrong offensively. That it also is to say that since their wide receivers are healthy, Todd Gurley's healthy, Hayden Hurst, I believe, is healthy. They're explosive. They go downfield. Regardless if it's running or passing, they're always trying to get downfield in big chunk plays. But at the same time, they're really good at controlling the clock. So they stay balanced for the most part, even though they are so explosive on offense. So feel free, dial up Calvin Ridley. Feel free to dial up Julio Jones. Heck, even if you're a deep league, you need a flex Russell Gage, I wouldn't mind it, whatever. They're a fantastic team. And Russell Gage is their third down. What I've noticed, I don't know the numbers. I didn't check it off, but just by the eyeball test, it seems Russell Gage is really their third down go-to guy. So if Carolina is that bad on third down, getting teams off the field, you should see a lot of Russell Gage targets tonight as well. So, so that is it as far as my starts and sits. Oh, as far as the Panthers are concerned, I know we talked about Mike Davis, Ian Thomas, but definitely DJ Moore, and what was the name of the other wide receiver?
They have Robbie Anderson
that we were talking about earlier.
Curtis Samuel.
We keep losing our internet connection. You there? Okay, what'd you say?
Curtis Samuel.
Curtis Samuel, that's what he was.
He's tied for the most receptions on third down in the league with, I believe, 14 and 11 of those going for first downs. So he'll be a guy to watch for sure.
Yeah, so Curtis Samuel, his name was on the tip of my tongue. But yes, as Drew said, he is their third down specialist as well as far as
both of those stats, the 14 catches on third down and the 11 first downs, converting 11 of them into first downs, both of those are tied for first in the league. So
there you go. So those are the guys to dial up wide receiver wise, running back wise, and even tight end wise. If whether it be Hayden Hurst, that's a little bit better choice, obviously. But even if you're in a double tight league and it's a deep league and you're desperate for tight ends, I wouldn't mind trying out Ian Thomas. So. Hey, what's up? All right, so that is our breakdown for the Panthers game. Just so you guys can, for those of you that are invested in it and want to watch it, you're more than welcome. But we also got a few other things that we wanted to talk about tonight. We got some news in the NFL as far as kind of what's going on before Sunday. Talk about some players on the waivers that maybe that are a little overlooked and underrated that you might want to look at picking up. And also we started a segment. We're kind of gonna see where it goes and give a little bit more attention to it. Kind of a fun segment, a little bit lighter segment. We're calling it Who's Effing Up. So it's our weekly awards, I guess, for the people that made some big mistakes here recently. So real quick, some players to look out for this week. Number one, Philadelphia's defense, if you can get that against Dallas. They are, again, no offense, Drew. I'm not trying to pick on your team. But
I pick on them enough. So.
Obviously, they have a real big problem at protecting their quarterback. Philadelphia is very good at getting to the quarterback. Also, even if that wasn't the case, they're starting a quarterback that has very little experience. So, at the very least, if they don't get interceptions and they don't get sacks or anything like that, let's just say it's just strictly points and yards based. Philadelphia is going to at least probably get you the minimum. Usually defenses start off with 10. I don't see Philadelphia getting anything necessarily that too much lower than that. So that's a really good defense if you happen to pick them up. I got them off the waivers in one of my leagues.
Also, on the Eagles, the guy we talked about last week is expected to play this week against the Cowboys is Alshon Jeffrey, so maybe a guy that you may want to look at. I'm not sure how many targets he may see, but it doesn't take but one against Dallas to score. So
Alshon's been someone that I've been looking at. It's been a week to week kind of basis, and I had him a couple of weeks in a row, and they kept saying, it might be this week, might be that week. So I let him go. But he's definitely somebody that they desperately need to get back on the field. Since he's been having such nagging issues, when he does come back, don't be surprised if he doesn't produce those big play numbers that you expect from Alshon Jeffrey. They're probably going to put him on a snap count. And at least in the beginning, unless they get really desperate or unless he shows he's 100% like ready to go. Alshon.
Quick game update. The Falcons are already in the red zone, so there's that offense we were talking about.
Sorry, you cut out again.
Sorry, it's storming here, so but. I was saying a quick update is the Falcons are in the red zone already, so there's some of that offense that we're telling y'all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the Eagles again, as far as players to pick up, keep an eye on Miles Sanders. I know we have. It's not looking like he will play this week. If for some reason, because today is Thursday, that's usually when they make kind of the half decision if they're going to go this weekend. He probably will be a game time decision, but I don't think he's going to – I think they're going to sit him one more week. I know Doug Peterson's kind of conservative. So, number one, I think Alshon Jeffrey may not play this week, even though they're reporting that he will. I think they're going to sit him and Miles Sanders because they do, I believe, have a bye week the following week. So I think he's going to try to get them, since they're at the top right now of the division and division leaders automatically get into the playoffs. He's going to use that to kind of gain momentum and slingshot him into the second half of the season. So I think there's a chance that he might keep, even if they are healthy enough to play, he might sit Alshon Jeffrey and Miles Sanders one more week. And what that means is Fulgham. What that means is Richard Rodgers. What that also means is the next person that I was going to talk about is Boston Scott. As we all know, last week he did really well. He was involved in the passing game and the running game. I expect that same thing this week as well. So he's another person to pick up if you are having some injury or bye week blues. One position that I want. Do you have anything before I move on to another player?
No, I seen Dylan's question.
No, 100%. Unless it's Madden, he might play Madden this week.
Yeah, it's still a couple weeks out at least, and they only signed him to the practice squad, so he'll have to pass physicals and jump through all kind of hoops before he's even allowed to play anyway. So I think it'll be a couple weeks at minimum.
Yeah, it's been a long time since Des has been on the football field in terms of football time. So it'll probably be a minute. But so a position I wanted to talk about that doesn't get talked about a lot but it can come through as the X factor sometimes in your games, and that's the kicker position. So 2 kickers that I think if they're out there on the waivers, usually people like to stream kickers, but if we're going on overall points throughout the course of the year, obviously every player, regardless of position, is going to have ups and downs week in and week out. That for some reason does not disqualify some of our players in skill positions on our teams to drop and add and drop and add. But for some reason, defenses and kickers get treated that way, and I'm guilty of the same thing. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Sometimes it's good if you can get a good string of streaming choices together and you can hit that, like you can hit the lottery. It's a powerful thing. But as we all know, Justin Tucker is a very sought-after kicker, and Greg Zuerlein as well, when he's on an offense that's capable of getting him in field goal range. Those kickers are obviously people that you would not stream. You would ride them out. But there are some kickers, 2 in particular, that I think you should target, that I have found on the waivers week in and week out, streaming them. I've dropped them, I've added them, I've dropped them, I've added them, and now I think I'm just going to keep them from the stats that they've been showing, and the things I've been reading on them. Number 1 is Ku. I can't pronounce his first name. I don't want to butcher it and sound dumb. He's the kicker for the Falcons. He has put up some very impressive numbers this year, especially here of late. Especially with the thing you need to look at with kickers is how good the offense is. They don't have to be a great scoring offense. They just have to be an offense that gets yards and gets you in the plus territory. And then also, if you want to go a step further and look at that offense in particular's third down conversion rates, that'll show you kind of mix that with their yards. If they have a lot of yards but a low third down conversion rate, that means they're getting down the field probably, but they're not turning that into touchdowns, which means field goals. And that can kind of help you navigate the waters of what kicker to get. Of course, after you compare it to the defense and stuff like that they're playing that week. Ku has been one of those guys that have been on a Falcons team, number 1, that scores a lot in general, just points, but they move the ball down the field, so he's constantly in field goal range. But my top kicker this year, other than the Justin Tuckers of the world, somebody that's not really talked about a lot, that I don't see at least talked about a lot on fantasy things that we follow as well, is Blankenship, the kicker for the Colts. At one time this season, he was the NFL's leading scorer in general out of all points. He had at one time 63 points at that time. He is still the leading scorer on his entire team, offense and defense. So that means that this dude gets a lot of opportunities. He's a rookie, so he gets a lot of opportunities, and he makes the most of them. So if you're in franchise leagues, long-term leagues, all that stuff, Blankenship is probably your kicker of the future, since he has shown to be reliable as far as getting the job done. So so those are some running backs for you. We talked about the kickers. Drew, you got any players, maybe tight ends or wide receivers or somebody you want to throw out there that might be a little under the radar?
I think we've kind of covered them every week. I think pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, like we said last week, the Browns. You can pick a couple receivers on their team that I think it's gonna start getting a lot more love, especially after Odell going down in the first quarter and then Baker still throwing for 5 touchdowns like we talked about last week. So, I mean, like I said, there's
like Rashard Higgins and stuff.
Higgins, Peoples-Jones that we talked about.
Yeah.
He's a guy I really like, to be honest. even more so.
Yeah, the more you watch of him, game film wise, the more impressed you get. He's really tall. He's lanky. He can jump high. He's got big hands, long arms, long legs. He's put together really well. Now, whether that can translate into a starting role, we'll see. But yeah, for sure.
And as you said before we came on air, another guy we talked about, Mike Williams coming back. So for the Chargers.
Yeah, Mike Williams is a beast. He is injury prone, so if you do take him on, just know that any given week he could have like a foot injury or a knee injury or hamstring. But when this kid is in, he's 6'5". He's a monster. He goes up and gets it. He's got great speed. Justin Herbert loves throwing to him. Granted, Keenan Allen is still the man on the team. He's still leading the AFC in targets and receptions. But Mike Williams, as much as Justin Herbert throws, Mike Williams is still a very viable option. It's like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Like Russell Wilson throws so much, it doesn't matter if you have both of them on your team. You're gonna benefit from it. Heck, if I could, I would have Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Russell Wilson on my same team. I'd start all three of them. I'm not a fan of a stack, but I'll do a triple stack on that team in a heartbeat for sure.
You can't go wrong with DK.
No, you can't, especially when the dude runs 100 yards in like 2 seconds.
That
was insane. All right, so that's pretty much it. So we're gonna move on to our hopefully what becomes ain't nothing wrong with being injury prone. No, I mean, and best wishes to them. But as far as fantasy speaking, yeah, there is a problem with being injury prone. Yeah. Like Michael Thomas, he's very frustrating to me right now. He hasn't played since week 1, and it's either his hamstring, his whatever, his punching a teammate. If Michael Thomas wasn't so daggum good, I would have traded him by now. But I'm not letting him go for nothing.
Speaking of Thomas and the Saints, another guy popped in my head, and I think we talked about him before too, was Marquez Callaway. He
does have a knee injury right now, though. Still not out, but yeah.
Yeah. So if Thomas isn't back again, then that's another guy. And plus, Callaway, he returns kicks and punts, so that's even more points. So another guy from University of Tennessee. So
you're a little bit biased.
Yeah,
I'm too. All right. So
not that we have much to be biased about at Tennessee, but
yeah,
we have a few good players.
Oh my gosh. So now that we got all that broken down, we got you some advice on some under the radar, probably waiver wire pickups for some bye weeks and for some injuries. We're gonna do a segment that hopefully catches on, but who's effing up? It's basically just a few picks from either one of us on some either teams or players or something to do with the NFL. That was a real swing and a miss here recently. So, and you'll see what we mean when we get on it. So, I'll start, I guess. So for my first award, I'm giving it to the Texans as an organization. Yes, they fired Bill O'Brien. Yes, they traded DeAndre Hopkins. That's beyond the point. I think Bill O'Brien needed to be gone anyway. It doesn't matter. He wasn't good for the team. They definitely messed up trading DeAndre Hopkins.
Anybody that would trade DeAndre Hopkins and give away all their picks should have been gone like immediately, and all have been null and void at that moment.
Well, that's what was bringing me to them for this week in particular. As we know, the trade deadline is November 3rd, I believe. or at least the first week in November. And the Texans have not tried to make a play. They literally said a week or two ago that just about everybody on their team was available for trade. Like everyone, no one was safe right now because of what Bill O'Brien did. They completely gutted their draft picks, and they're paying out the wazoo for everybody on their team. So they made a message very clear that just about everybody's up for grabs on their team. Yet they have not followed through with any of it. J.J. Watt is still there. Merciless is still there. You got Will Fuller, Randall Cobb, Fells, their tight end. He's not super great, but I mean, there's
Randall Cobb has been playing lights out too. I'm surprised somebody hasn't tried to hit him.
Right, David Johnson, Duke Johnson. I mean, Deshaun Watson. I don't want to go as far as Deshaun Watson, but at the same time, yes, he has great stats and he's a good quarterback, but as we were saying with Dak Prescott, he gets the numbers, he looks good on paper, but they just don't translate into wins. And the dude holds on to the ball too much, and he takes a lot of sacks. That's not saying with a good coach you can't get that out of him. He is something special. But for the amount of money that you are spending and for the amount of picks that you have lost, you cannot afford to have a barren year in the offseason coming up here with the lack of team that you have right now.
If I'm not mistaken, they have the highest payroll in the league, right?
Something like that. With J.J. Watt's $300 million salary or contract that he got. Okay, I might be overstepping a little bit. I might be out of pocket for saying Deshaun Watson, but at the very least, I would trade J.J. Watt. I would trade Laramie Tunsil, that's who they got, their left tackle from the Dolphins. I would trade him. I would trade any receiver that any team wanted. I mean,
they got Cooks too.
Yeah, they got Brandon Cooks. Trade him. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, Texans fans. I know you hate to hear it. I'm not saying this as a Titans fan. I'm saying this as, do you want to hold on to what you got and start your draft next year in the third round and just basically have a wasted draft and have another repeat season because you can't pay anybody from free agency? You're not drafting anybody. So what do? J.J. Watt, let's be honest. He's a hell of a player. He is not what he was. He is not the person that you gave a $300 million contract to, but his name still carries clout. So you can get a second-round pick, maybe even a first-round pick for somebody super desperate for a pass rush, like Green Bay. Like they're pretty set. They got a shutdown cornerback now. They got great receivers. They got good tight ends, good offensive line, great two running backs. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to give up a first-round pick for someone like J.J. Watt to give them a pass rush. That's the only thing they lack on that team. That and maybe like one good key linebacker or something like that. That's just what if. But
this is just a dream scenario. But I would love to see him go. If, like I said, just a dream. But I would love to see him go to Pittsburgh and play with his brother. That'd be pretty cool. Or his brothers, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say both of his brothers.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome.
That would be awesome. That would be scary as hell, though, because their pass rush defense would get even freaking better. Or hell, even the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens the Ravens secondary is locked down. They just re-signed Marlon Humphreys. Granted, they could use maybe like a safety or something. They got Calais Campbell on the line. They got decent linebacker. I mean, they're always good on defense. And
they just traded for the guy from the Falcons. The Vikings that was on the Jaguars team with Calais Campbell when they went to the AFC championship. So I can't remember.
Ngakoue.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, they're pretty stacked on defense. They have the talent on offense to pick up in the second round. So trade your first round pick, get J.J. Watt. Make that defense even crazier. Just something like that. I mean, and plus all these, like I said, all these wide receivers. Team needs wide receivers really bad. There's a lot of teams out there that need wide receivers, like the Lions. I mean, or the Jets, Washington. There's so many teams out there that need good wide receivers.
Franchise.
Yeah, the Jets, they just need everything traded. But anyway, shame on the Texans because they're definitely effing up. They have a lot of capital that they can get rid of that they're not going to do anything with. Let's be honest. And unless they have a lights out 4 draft picks next year. And somehow people are like, hey, we want to restructure our contracts to give you guys extra money. I do not see them doing anything with these dudes. They're going to be wasted another year, and it's going to be another disappointing season. So you might as well gut it the best you can gut it, get as many draft picks back as possible, get as much salary cap room as possible, go out, be aggressive in the offseason, sign those people, get those, hire a really good scout, get those draft picks nailed down, and you could turn this around in a couple of years, maybe even 1 if you do it good enough, but definitely 2 years. So I don't know. That's just me. Another one for me obviously is Daniel Jones tripping. We have
It's almost as good as a butt fumble.
Yeah, right. So we have officially found the speed at which. So okay, let me. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we know the speed of sound. We have found the speed of light, and apparently now we have found the speed at which a white person can run where their soul leaves their body. We have found the speed at which a white person can outrun their soul and collapse on the field. And that speed is 21.2 miles per hour. So as long as you stay under 21.2 miles per hour, your soul is safe. That is for sure. So.
To put that in perspective, DK Metcalf, when he chased down Budda Baker on that interception, was running 22 miles per hour. Daniel Jones is running. That's insane.
What's even crazier is last week, Lamar, or the week before that, or sometime earlier this year, Lamar Jackson ran 21 miles per hour, and he was the fastest at the time. Yeah. Derrick Henry runs 21 miles per hour, and he gets the fastest when he does that stuff too. So Daniel Jones was running like someone was chasing him with a knife. Literally, it's I don't know what. Good for him. Good for him. That's all I can say.
If you've watched any of our shows and heard me talk about Daniel Jones, there's been nothing really that good that I've said about it. But my hat is off to him after that. I have a newfound respect for Daniel Jones, and I hope he gets out of New York so he can actually have a career.
And not just the speed that he ran, but that was the perfect read to get that open field. He made that guy bite hard. He pulled it, and he just did not hesitate and took off, and he outran his soul. Anyway.
And it's still the leading rusher for the New York Giants.
Still the leading rusher, and now officially probably the fastest person on the Giants roster. Every week he's adding new accolades to his repertoire. All right. So who you got, Drew? Who's effing up in your book?
Well, my first one is the game we just talked about with the Falcons. Or not the game we just previewed. I'm sorry. Todd Gurley accidentally scoring last week, and then,
oh my goodness!
Which that was the effing up part. But what was really effed up is the Lions were arguing with the officials that he did score. They wanted him to score. For the first time in NFL history, the opposing team argued that the other team scored. It was pretty insane. And then they ended up driving down and winning the game, which was pretty awesome. I'm glad to see that for the Lions, man. They made it to 500, so it's almost like making the playoffs. So Their season ended last week with a great 500 win victory. But,
There you go.
And to stay on the Falcons, I guess it ain't really effing up. It's almost an effing up. They actually this week asked Julio and Matt Ryan if they would be willing to accept a trade, and of course both of them was said absolutely not. Like, we're staying here. Like, this is where we want to be at. So, but like, why would you even like? You have one of the most powerful offenses in the. Your only thing you're missing is a secondary. That's it.
And it's not that you're missing it. You have it. They're just not healthy right now.
Yeah, like
so.
And maybe a pass rush. Maybe that's where J.J. Watt needs to go to help.
Yeah.
The pass rush would help the secondary, kind of hide the secondary. So, Atlanta, if you're listening, probably not, but go get
we're available for general manager spots.
Yeah, I hear y'all looking for one. So, let's see.
What about the Dallas offense? Did pretty freaking awful too.
Oh man. Oh yeah. Thank you for reminding me. Like, what does that say about what you mean to your teammates when you get your head completely?
Wait, put this in the context for folks that haven't. I'm sure everyone's heard about it by now, but put this into context.
So, if you haven't seen it, of course, Andy Dalton's running down the field and like slides and like takes a hit from John Bostic that literally like knocks him, like TKO'd him, like he's a
dirty hit, ass hit,
very very dirty hit, which Bostic was immediately ejected from the game. Of course, Andy Dalton gets a concussion, but no one went to check on him. Like
no one even fought the other player.
No, they didn't even stick up for him or anything. Like which I heard I think Zeke did an interview like saying, yeah, we probably should have stood up for him or fought more, but at the same time we have to keep our head and you can't throw punches and ruin it for your team anymore. Who cares? You're not going to win anything anyway, and you just got blew out by the Washington football team. Punch somebody. Like, at least make it exciting. Like, clear the benches. Like, get the tables. Do it all. Like, who cares? Like,
get the tables. Bill's Mafia. Powerbomb people through the table.
Yeah, like that's not that. Yeah, I get it. But it's still your teammate. Go check on your quarterback. No one even looked at him.
I mean, that even bringing Dak up into it is a good point. You couldn't you let Dak get hurt, and then at the same time, now you let Andy Dalton get hurt. Make a statement, like, because right now you're a joke of an offensive line to the NFL. You just letting people put your quarterbacks out, and you won't do anything about it. I have read so many quotes from like current and past players and coaches this week that said, F that. If that was my team or those were my players and they didn't get me a 15 yard unsportsmanlike conduct for like giving a receipt to that player that hit Andy Dalton, like they would be highly criticized in the next meeting. Like I just don't understand it. Like I would probably, if I was one of those players that didn't play a lot and on the bench, I would probably sacrifice myself. Like, what if I get suspended? It doesn't matter. I play kickoff. Like, I'm going to go there and bash his helmet off.
Yeah, like, if I'm that guy, like, that never plays ever, like, that's my only chance to get on the field. I'm going.
Right.
I'm taking helmets. I'm
water cooler, all that shit.
Bring the equipment. Bring all the equipment out here, and I'm just gonna start destroying people with like
extension cords, wrap it around.
If they didn't know me before that, they're gonna know me after this. Even if it's my last game I ever play, like they're
bro,
know me.
You'll get a 2-year contract extension just for going out there and whipping ass to stick up for your quarterback. Oh my gosh, that team just needs some fight.
I seen Richard Sherman say he actually made a comment on it, and was saying, like, if that was Tom Brady laying out there, you think that his whole team wouldn't have, like, just went out there and destroyed whoever that was?
Yeah, right.
And he questioned the whole team's lack of effort, respect for
Yeah.
Andy Dalton, respect for the coaching staff. Like right now, it's almost like, and I hate to even blame it on McCarthy because, like, I mean, just the whole year is just thrown off anyway with everything that's going on. But like it's almost like he's lost his team in 7 games. Like they just like
It's almost like he almost didn't have him. He barely had him in the first place.
Yeah. Which to touch on that, like there was a lot of Jason Garrett guys in that locker room, and I was one of them for a long time that criticized Garrett, but I mean, we were never this bad under Garrett, like in 7 games. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But like I said, the year is crazy. We got like 15 people on IR. Andy Dalton's in ICU. Like I mean, it's just insane.
That sucks, man. He comes home like for a valiant reason to be with his family during this time of COVID and to play, number one, he's playing football, but he basically made this decision to come home. Like he could have went to a few other places where he probably would have had more success. But and been a starter. But he decided to come home, take care of his family. And that offense is going to do him dirty like that and just not even stick up for him. That's awful.
And I was kind of paraphrasing on Sherman's quote, but I just found it. It says, if you're in Tampa and that happens to Tom Brady, that guy don't even make it off the field.
No, there's no way. Same thing with Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers, Ryan Tannehill. Oh, my God, if Ryan Tannehill got hurt like that.
And even Mike McCarthy in his post-game press conference, they asked him about, why did nobody go and check on him, or why did the team react the way they did? And McCarthy was kind of at a loss for words and said that that's definitely not, in that type of situation, that's definitely not a response that you expect out of your teammates and your players. So.
Yeah. Which is coach talk for those motherfuckers, excuse my language. Those people should have been getting flags thrown on them for righting those wrongs. I don't know, man. That just sums up that team.
Breaking news for you college fans and Trevor Lawrence fans, and all the Jets are holding their breath right now. But
that makes no sense, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
He just tested positive for coronavirus. So.
I don't know why, number one, the Jets would want him. Number two, like why that even became a story. Because the Jets drafted Sam Darnold, and I don't think Sam Darnold's a bad quarterback. He's just had 2 terrible coaching staffs, and he's got nobody to throw to. He did have like Terrell Pryor for 1 year, and like every time he gets or Robbie Anderson, every time he gets like one receiver that he clicks with, they trade him away. Huh?
Jamison Crowder, but he stays home.
Yeah, like I mean, they have a trash offensive line. They can't get a running game going. They don't give him serious weapons. And then when he starts to develop a relationship with those weapons, they're gone. He's had 2 coaching staffs in 2 years. Sam Darnold can play, and he's a big dude for big weather, for New York football. Like he's built for New York football.
They're actually shopping him. Like they're trying to trade him. Great news for him.
Great news for him, obviously, yeah. But that's dumb because now you're gonna have to draft another quarterback and teach him how to play in the NFL all over again. And then you're going to also have to do the same thing you were supposed to do with Darnold and draft weapons for him. It's I just don't get the Jets either. So
Adam Gase like that's over with after this year too. Like they're going to be starting all over again with a new coaching staff. I'm pretty positive that he's gone.
I don't know how many chances he's going to get in the NFL. Yet the Chiefs' offensive coordinator can't even get a daggone interview.
Yeah,
So.
and in an interview, Trevor Lawrence, when asked about his plans for next year, he kind of hinted around like, "Hey, I'm not going to the Jets. Like, if it comes down to the Jets, I'll come back and play another year at Clemson because they cleared everybody to have an extra year."
I'd do it anyway. The teams that would draft a quarterback, the Jets, maybe the Giants.
If Dallas keeps losing, and the way I've heard things talked about, they still don't think Dak's going to get his contract, especially now because of the injury. And I hope that is not true because he deserves it now more than ever because you see what he means to that team.
Yeah.
But I've even heard rumors that if Dallas is in the top 5 picks, that they would try to make a move up to the top of the draft. So
what would be cool? The ideal situation I would love to see, and I'm not a Trevor Lawrence fan because I'm a Florida State diehard, but he is a talented quarterback. But what I would love to see happen, the Falcons continue this losing streak, get in the top 5, make a trade up for the first pick before the draft. So Trevor Lawrence sees that, and I would draft Matt Ryan's replacement because that's coming soon. Like Matt Ryan's probably got a couple years left, and
I think it would take them having to trade Ryan or somebody like that to get up to the top, like Ryan and their 5th pick if they got the 5th pick up to the top.
To be honest, man, I would probably trade like my 2nd, 3rd, and 6th round pick or something if I were the Falcons. Because like literally you have a secondary. They just keep getting hurt. You can sign other people in the off season. You got some money. Or you could trade Matt Ryan.
The reason I'm saying Ryan is just because of what it opens up salary cap wise, because he's high paid. So.
He is, but there's also value in Matt Ryan teaching Trevor Lawrence the game of the NFL. Like, well, who better than a former MVP? Who better to tell Julio's tricks and tips for how to throw to Julio than Matt Ryan? If you trade him.
And that is where Ryan Fitzpatrick comes in. He's going to Atlanta next year with Trevor Lawrence. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey,
the same thing happened.
Hey, I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to it at all.
I said it in a joking way, but like it would be an ideal situation, honestly. Like just no, but it would suck for Fitz again to go through the same thing back-to-back years. But I mean, he knows his days are almost numbered, so that's why this year I think. But
I would sign him and intentionally tell him, look, we're signing you to teach this kid that we're not going to pull the rug out from under you. We're just going to let you know there ain't no rug to stand on.
Yeah,
once you've taught this kid and he's ready to go, he's going to start. But we're going to pay you good.
Which I think a guy like Trevor Lawrence, I think me personally I think he's a day one guy, honestly. Like, if Herbert comes in and is performing this way, Burrow comes in performing like Lawrence is just as good, if not better, than those guys. And
you think?
Yeah, especially if he goes to Atlanta, man. Look at the offense they have. Like, there's no better situation to come into offensively, wise. And like they don't give up a lot of sacks either, as far as from what I can remember stats wise.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only team I could say that you could come in like that and just have all the a lot of weapons around you and hopefully the line is healthier, is Dallas. Like Andy Dalton, like when he signed with Dallas, that was his main reason was to stay home. But he was like where else would you rather play? Like with all the weapons you have around you, if you were thrown into it, and it didn't work out that way for him. But like
Yeah.
on paper, like where else has 3 basically number 1 receivers, like and a top 5 running back, like and one of the best lines when they're all there, but that didn't happen this year either. Like just all the injuries this year, man, it's just crazy. The whole NFL's chaos.
They should have. I don't know, man. They should have cut like 3 weeks off the beginning of the season. Make that a preseason. Get players warmed up and used to it, and then had a 14-game season or something. I mean, I don't know. That's just something off the top of my head. I know they got to worry about tickets and all that stuff, but you can't sell tickets if your best players are getting hurt because they didn't have any time to warm up.
Honestly, nobody's selling the tickets anyway, so.
That's true.
And that's where the TV marketing deals come in.
Yep. Well, Florida did pass a law allowing stadiums and outdoor stuff to be open at full capacity. I don't know when it goes into effect, but I don't know. Also, the election is next week, so we'll see.
I'm sure in the great state of Jerry Jones, or I'm sorry, Texas. I'm sure he's fighting for it for sure.
Dude, Jerry Jones literally owns Texas for sure, 100%.
Yeah. Like I think, if I'm not mistaken, right now, the Cowboys have like the highest capacity out of the NFL games so far.
Yeah. Well, they also can afford it with as big as their stadium is. They can space people out.
They're averaging like between 25 and 30,000, I think, something like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, you got anything else?
I think that's about it.
All right, cool. So just heads up on what's coming up here next on Sunday. We will have the Sunday slate breakdown for you, as well as later on that evening we'll have, like always, This Week in Wrestling. Next week, obviously Monday Night Football, we're going to be going live. After that, I will be taking a hiatus for the week. I'm actually going to be celebrating the birth of my second daughter, and Drew and Chad are going to take over for that week, and definitely excited to see what content they bring to the page. You guys are in very good hands, and then I will see you guys the week after that. So anyways, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you Sunday for football, and we will also see you Sunday for wrestling. So you guys have a good night, enjoy the rest of the game, and have a great rest of the week. And like always, come with us if you want to win. Peace.